Hey everybody, welcome to the SaaS. Zayas here, and I think I had a little glitch. So welcome to the SaaS Founder Show. Tony Zayas here, back for another episode where we really have some great conversations, some fascinating SaaS founders who get to share their journey, the growth, trajectory, the speed bumps, the challenges, everything along the way. And I'm excited. I think we have a great show lined up for you here today. We're going to be talking to Bernadette Butler. She's the CEO and co-founder of StoryTap. And StoryTap is the leader in video storytelling. Their platform lets brands easily produce and share video stories. Sounds amazing. So with that, Bernadette, how are you doing today?
Excellent. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, by all means, thank you for joining. We're super excited. I read the really brief descriptor of the business. Go ahead and tell us what StoryTap is all about. Would love to hear from your perspective.
Yeah, StoryTap. StoryTap, we predominantly work with larger brands like the UCLAs of the world, the Veets, and a bunch of packaged goods, Danone, et cetera. And what we do is we really help them grow their online brands through tapping into their most underutilized assets, their customers and staff members. We have a number of different video solutions. And ultimately what we do is we automate this collection of really versatile stories that resonate with their current folks that are shopping on their website to help drive conversions. And we're all about the data. So we strive to get at least 30% and more in terms of an increase on conversion of their website, and conversion meaning whether it's they're buying a pair of pants or they're clicking to learn more or they're booking an appointment, whatever the customer that we're working with.
So obviously video is huge. It's so
Yeah.
important for any business in today's world. Where did you come up with the concept? What's the origin story behind the business?
Well, Tony, the origin story. So I'd say, I was in advertising marketing my entire career, and I was busy spending a lot of money producing videos that would have kind of a short shelf life, so to speak. So it was a ton of money. And when you're in an agency, you just care to make really great ads. When you're on the client side, as I was, they have to work. And although I had millions every quarter, I had to make sure that I was accountable for the ROI. And I just had this crazy idea of like, imagine if my customers did stories for me on video. So I tried and I failed miserably. And then I thought, I know what went wrong. I tried again and spent a lot of money and failed miserably. I mean, I got a couple of videos in, but it was completely unusable from a brand perspective. From that point, well after I left the company, I got really quiet with that concept of, why is it so hard to tell a video or tell a story on video? Like, what are the barriers? So that's a little bit of the origin story. It is definitely where we started is not where we are today. We actually started, I got really passionate about, the potential of tapping into a story. And I thought, what could be the biggest story out there? And at the time for me, it was the idea of a life story, and I actually started recording my grandmother and friends' parents, and just to understand how that works. And so our MVP was a life story product. Very, very different than where we are today.
I'd love to hear. So what did the MVP look like, and what was the focus of it?
So the MVP was really, I literally sat at Starbucks and I had like PowerPoints and like mock-ups and like, I'll pay you $5, and I'd pick on every baby boomer that walked in and I'll buy them a cup of coffee. It was really, and what's incredible about starting there was that our product does not feel like tech, because it couldn't. We were capturing stories from baby boomers. It could not feel like something new they had to learn. So, fundamentally, the core of our product is still the same. Like it still doesn't feel like tech, even though we capture stories from massive brands to their consumers or their staff members. It's still, they record on their phone, tablet, desktop. It doesn't feel like technology, which is really, really core. So as much as we pivoted because we were way too early. And I still even think we're decades away from being able, I think it's the headspace of a baby boomer. It's like their final song and they're never ready. They haven't lost the weight. They haven't, whatever the thing is, it's an issue. Like my own mother wouldn't do it. So I knew we had to shift gears to the backup plan, which is what I do anyways, is, marketing.
Your positioning of the business is really on, it's about results and outcomes. We just came out of a meeting this morning, our team, just with that really focus on being results obsessed. I think that's really powerful. There's so much you can do with video. It's needed by almost every brand out there in today's world. So how did you come up with, in that pivot, how did you come to develop the solution to where it is today? Like, what was the iterations and how did it build out? Where did you find the positioning? So the messaging, the way you guys presented, how did it come to be what it is today?
Blood, sweat, and tears, smashing my face against the floor with a chair several times. Like it honestly, and I think most founders will echo this. It is trial and error. We were really fortunate. We joined Techstars pretty early in when we launched our SaaS version. Techstars was phenomenal. It gave us cash, and it gave us time and education, and surrounded by other founders that were incredible. And I think having incredible mentors and advisors, I remember my Techstars managing director sitting us down and saying, I don't think you guys are going to make it. Like, you guys got to figure this out. And I was like, that hurts. And that's when we came up with video reviews. So I'd say we are really early on that journey of like video and propelling your business from your actual customers. And video reviews is where we went, oh yeah. And we kind of went underground. We built a ton of tech around that specifically, and then surfaced, and then the pandemic hit, and that was great. And then the pandemic hit, and then it was just kind of light bulbs went off about all the video solutions we could develop that really bridged the gap between what once happened physically and now was a bit risky to what could possibly happen on a website. And so we'd launch products, and then now when you've got a suite of products, you have to get a bit higher. And yet still, for us, the core is there's two obsession points for us. One, the stories have to be phenomenal and emotional. So the story side of the platform, we always invest heavily in like story variety, story variation, lots of storytelling. But then of course the data. So we've invested a ton in data. So, what customers are performing best for your brand, what storylines are performing best, what questions are performing best. So really diving deep into the performance of the platform. And so to kind of get back to your question, it's an evolution, and we're never done. I think, most founders kind of revisit as the market shifts and changes, and you just need to keep doing that, and you have to constantly be relevant and so I think it is trial and error. It is a journey to be kind with yourself. Being a founder, be kind with yourself. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint. And your early customers really help tell that story too. You hear from them firsthand, what's magical. And they're like, I remember my first call with a brand called Canadian Tire, who own everything. They're not just tires. They're like a Home Depot competitor. They're massive in Canada. I'm Canadian. And the innovation officer said, like, this is borderline magic. And I was like, tell me more. Like, I'm trying to write down fast, like what he sees. Cause sometimes it's forest for the trees where you are so in it. It's so great when somebody's on the other side and can kind of give you a fresh perspective of all the pains that we didn't even know we're solving for them. So it's been an incredible journey.
That is something you like to hear. This is magic, right? This is magic. Yeah, that's really cool. So given your current role, your background, kind of what it is you do, you're kind of an expert on storytelling, right? And so as a marketer, as a founder of this particular business and what you guys do with video, I would love to hear a bit about how you guys pitch to raise funds, and did you go through that process? How was that process for you? And do you have any advice for other SaaS founders on creating that story that you're telling when you're pitching about your business, and how do you tell amazing stories?
Yeah, it is all storytelling. I mean, I think I learned that firsthand in advertising. It's, what sells is storytelling. What sells even better is truth, like true storytelling, authenticity.
Yeah.
And I think as founders, when you go out to fundraise, and so we've done our seed round, we're gearing up for our A round. The story is so, so important. And I think a little bit is you're going to hone your story. You're going to create your pitch deck. You're going to, I mean, I actually, funny story, the first check I ever got, I was just going for coffee with somebody and I was just bubbling over with passion about where we were headed. And he wasn't an investor. He was just somebody I was just having coffee with.
Yeah.
And he said, "Can I invest?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, "What do you want to do?" And he's like, "I want to put in all this money." I was like, "Yeah, I got to get a lawyer. I got to figure this out." Like it just kind of happened that fast. And I think if you are truly passionate about what you're doing, and if you sometimes miss that passion or you've forgotten about the passion, you better find it again, because that they are investing, in fact, in you. And like, I've got an incredible co-founder. We're both equally as passionate. And I think that is at the early stage, that's what they're investing in. The product's got to be good, but they're really investing in you, your vision, where you're going to take this, and ultimately what's your exit plan. Like, how big is it going to get? Who are you going to irritate? Who might want to buy you? Are you getting IPO? But really think through that exit as well. And it's great to have a North Star, but for us, it was always build an incredibly massive business. Like, and here's how we believe we're going to achieve that, and just really hone that story, and that vision, and convey that. Because when you do bring on investors, you are getting married. Like, it is like you are talking to them often. And so that fit for us was so critical. So when we did our seed round, it was so important for us. Video is so hot. We were getting a lot of attention, and we really wanted to choose our investors wisely on fit. And I always call them like Jerry Maguire investors, where they care so much about like us as people, and that like there's a human component to building this incredible company. And I've got kids, my co-founder has kids, like we are human. And they were just, have been, will always be incredible humans who just want to help propel you, and like fires under StoryTap. And like, it's just an incredible marriage. It's an incredible marriage when you choose wisely. So the other advice I would say is you are also interviewing them. It is not all them interviewing you. You are also interviewing them, and do your reference checks. Get critical with it. You are 100% getting married.
Yeah, I love that, and we have heard that from some other founders that have been on here. I think it's an important, really important point. I think when you're, starting to, you have that need to raise those funds, and there's a bit of desperation that could be coming out, but ultimately, as you said, it's got to be a partnership, and it's a marriage, and you're locked into it, so it's got to be a good fit. And so I think that's really important. Talked with someone else in a past one, and the idea of looking at it as a two-way process almost is probably beneficial as well, just given kind of human nature, right? Like when someone is needy, you don't want them as much, but when they're not, kind of you're drawn to that. And so if you're going out there with that kind of approach, it's probably going to actually yield you better results. But
and we bootstrapped for a long time. Like, we took early investment, and I would also encourage founders in the early stage, like, get involved in the startup community, find out where there's non-dilutive cash, and like, you might qualify for it. You probably do qualify for it. So find other ways to fund your vision till you get to a point, because you don't want, I think raising on an idea is great if you can pull it off, but then at some point this company needs to make money. And that's another journey all by itself, is figuring out your business model and proving out that it works. So I'm a big fan of bootstrapping, staying hungry, having marital disputes of why you're not bringing in a paycheck, because that was definitely me. But it was awesome because it helped us find our way faster, and in a way that eventually paid off. When we finally did do our seed round, we were in a much, much stronger position.
That's great. I'd love to hear more about your co-founder, kind of what that relationship looks like, how you guys met, where it all began, and kind of how you work together as well.
Yeah. So his name's Sean Brax. And so I originally kind of came up with this wacky concept. And like I mentioned, I got our first check. So I had money in the bank to kind of pay people to pull things together. And this was the first time I was kind of leaving corporate and entering into startup land. And I had many people who I'd meet to say, do you have a co-founder? And I was like, oh, no, I don't. It's like, well, you should think about one. This is going to be a really challenging journey. You should think about one. And at first I was taken back by it. And then I started to go, oh, there's a lot here. Yeah, I could probably, benefit. And so I started to think about it. I met a few people, but I ended up meeting Sean because I hired him to do user experience of our MVP. I had a separate developer to do user experience. And we started working together and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is so smart. And we worked really, really well together. And then the one day he said, I'm self-taught, but I'm a full stack developer. I said, what? And so I talked to my developer at the time. I'm like, can you guys talk and see if this could be? And so they had a chat and my developer at the time said, oh no, this guy's phenomenal. I'm like, okay. And so we literally went for a walk and I was like, do you want to be my co-founder? And he's like, yep. And we really haven't looked back. I'd say, what's incredible about Sean and I is he loves to work on things that are well beyond my scope and I work on things that he just doesn't want to. Yeah. So there's that incredible balance. I'm more, I'd say outspoken and I think in headlines and marketing and sales. And he's, of course, he's the tech, he's the product, he obsesses over that. So there's that balance. And I'm so grateful that, and when things got tough, that's when you really look for a co-founder, because when we didn't have a great business model initially, we both had to do some side hustles to figure it out so we could, make it work, and it still has to be even and it still has to feel good. And I mean, fast forward to where we are today, we've, never even had a fight. Like, we've had disagreements, but the maturity level and the camaraderie and the friendship I think that we've built outweighs anything. So we just soldier on, make the best decisions we can, and move forward.
How do you guys collaborate and work on bigger level things, strategic planning and things within the business? How do you go about that? Is that something that you kind of have on the calendar that every month, every quarter you check in on? Or are they just kind of organic conversations? What does your process look like?
Yeah, so we're a fully remote company. And so how we typically, him and I chat every day. We have, we're constantly jumping on Zoom calls like this. We're always on Zoom calls. But for planning, I always find it as much as possible to do it in person. And we've done planning in coffee shops. Last week, we just rented out a big space and flew a bunch of people in. But I think the in-person, the sticky notes on the wall, having too much coffee, getting ridiculous, all of that adds incredible momentum, I think, and creativity to what you kind of need when you're diving into planning. And so, yeah, so it's definitely a mix. We as much as we're remote and we've got folks across the country, Sean and I don't live that far away from each other. So meeting up is pretty easy to do, and we do it often.
That's great. So I would love to hear a little bit about the team. As you mentioned, you got, folks across the country, you guys are fully remote. What does the team look like, and how has what did the team look like, 18 months ago as opposed to today, and how are you managing that growth?
Well, good question. So 18 months ago, we were itty bitty. I mean, we were 5. We were 3 full-time, 5 with contractors. Everyone had a million hats, working around the clock. Things, it was a challenge. Money was tight. We weren't able to pay people probably for sure what they were worth, and everybody was kind of in it to win it. After our seed round, and we're on this trajectory of that, we needed to find and to grow a high performance team. And so I think a few things went into that. One is really honing your values, or our values. So, and we've done it several times, and we actually refine them a little bit, especially as you kind of get into growth stage, refining them, because where you are at a 5-person company is quite different when you're at a 30-person company.
Yeah.
So, and then really we started to double down at that stage in marketing and sales. So really growing out those 2 teams. We do have a customer success team. So really growing out that team as more customers joined. And the last one, which we've just kind of really bolstered, which is incredible, is the tech side. But it's funny because my co-founder is so incredible. He could do so much and he's so fast. But now we've got a pretty large development team. Yeah, so that's it. And then we're just starting to add on like that really senior level, but being very careful about that. And so far it's been really incredible.
That's great. How do you, as you're bringing people into the business, is there any lessons that you've learned along the way of like finding the right people that are a good fit for what you guys are looking to do? A lot of times we talk to founders about things like core values and culture. Finding those people, there's typically telltale signs early on. What have you learned? What's worked for you guys?
Well, one thing we did post our seed round, we hired full-time HR. And I wasn't sure whether we needed that or not, but Sean was adamant, and boy, was he right, because it is to ramp up that fast with that many humans. It's a lot, and to do it well. It's not a side hustle. You've got to really invest in these people. They're joining you. We are a startup. They're joining a chance to be a part of something massive. And you want that experience to be fantastic. So that was one thing we did. I think, fit is great. I do believe in, fire fast if things aren't working out, and, probation period, but we've learned a lot. I think hiring well, and I'd say hiring in sales is different than marketing. And, like across the board, every different department is very different. Marketing is kind of my sweet spot. So I feel like that's strong. And, we learned a lot. So I think we did a kind of a few mistakes throughout the journey, like many have, and you learn fast and you adapt quickly, and, figuring out a faster hiring system for salespeople, for example. We had a really long drawn out one to make sure it was the right fit. And sometimes that hurts candidates because you're taking too long. So you really do need to think about, talent as like the biggest asset of the company. And, I think you're constantly looking for great talent. Like all great founders, I'm constantly looking for incredible humans that could add value, because it just makes such a difference. So hopefully that makes sense.
It's great. Early in the conversation, you mentioned about talking about making the platform it doesn't feel like tech, right? Something that doesn't. And I think that's a great way to look at, a lot of software SaaS businesses. It's that simplification that is necessary to grow. How do you, and other piece I've taken away is how you apply that idea of kind of humanizing, and it's about the people. And so with that being the case, I think sometimes early on, people that are starting a tech business can lose sight of that when they're too far in the weeds and they think it's all about the technology and all of that. How do you promote like culture amongst your team? And how do you help these team members, as you guys are growing quickly, see the big vision and the big picture and have something for them to buy in? Like, how do you approach that? What does the communication look like as you're getting bigger and probably not touching base with everybody one-on-one? How is the founder and, co-founder and CEO, how do you make that vision available to all your team members?
I think the hardest part about joining a startup is that startups by nature are constantly evolving, and as you should. The product's evolving, the messaging's being tweaked, and I think that's challenging for a lot of people who come from, corporate, that don't have a lot of experience in startup. I think it's frustrating and I've talked to many founders in my network that kind of echo that same thing. There's this frustration. So I think communication is really critical. Having the right setup. Like we're remote, so we really focus and intentionally are growing a remote culture, one that folks can connect with in person. We've got like a program in place where they can, we help them kind of connect in person, but then also, Slack, Zoom calls, stand-ups. We have, a weekly call where we talk. We're very, very transparent. We talk about where we are as a company, what it looks like, where we're headed, and all the key measurements that indicate our performance as a company. It's one thing to say we're going to hire performance folks. It's another thing to hide what's actually happening. So we've taken the full transparency approach with our company. And I think it's just you're constantly having open discussions. And I think what's great about StoryTap and the team that we have is it's very collaborative. Like it isn't a top down. I mean, the planning sessions and those that contribute to it, it's quite incredible. So I think it's not just me communicating the story. I mean, I'm definitely a big voice, of course, but every department head has a voice and helps their team translate where we are today into their goals and initiatives. So we spend a lot of time around OKRs and measuring objective and key results. And that takes the big message and the big goals of the company and breaks it down. So we're all kind of marching along to the same beat. And I think that's pretty helpful.
That's great. I would like to hear a little bit more about, how you've leveraged, we like to talk about mentors, communities. You mentioned Techstars. Like, what did you get out about that? What was your experience like? Do you stay in touch with, other founders? What does that network and support look like for you?
Yeah, like so we've done 2 accelerators, Techstars and Lazarita Scale Up. Lazarita Scale Up, a lot of folks don't know it in America. It's Canadian based. It takes place in the Valley. Both were phenomenal. Like every time I'm like, how much time is it going to be? What do they want out of it? There's that, logical, rational chat you have with your lawyer about, does it make sense? But I would say, do it. If you can get in, it is transformational. And so for us, Techstars, we were part of Techstars Anywhere, the first time they ever had a virtual program. And I remember flying down for the first time, and my co-founder wasn't sure if he wanted to go because we were so busy. I said, we should do this. And just to, we walked in the room, and I think I was the only one that hadn't done a TED Talk. Like the caliber of the founders in some of these programs, you would be a fool if they weren't friends for life. And you feel like you kind of, through the program, it's very, very intense. So you actually do bond quite a bit. I just had a call yesterday with my managing director from Techstars, and we're 4 years post program. I had a call last week with another founder that I'd say is, 5 years ahead of us. And what's great about it is it's built on friendship. Like you go through program together, and it's so intense, and it's really, really challenging and hard. And so you bond over that, and everyone knows each other's business. And it's so incredible to see where everyone has how far they've come. Like it really, really is incredible. And if you pick the right program, it's a little diverse. So in our program, it wasn't just marketing, it was all different types of technology. And I think that was really insightful, just to see those different business models and founder setups and how they kind of approach their go-to-market, et cetera. And then on the flip side, Lazarita Scale Up, that's for a lot more mature companies who have done their A round, B, C, even IPO'd. And they spend a lot more time on, I'd say, culture and growth and stability of a larger set company. And how do you keep a lot of the questions you're asking, like how do you keep the vision and the direction? And I think both were phenomenal for us. Like we just were sponges, we didn't miss talk, even though I wasn't able to run the business while I was doing it. I was sitting in a classroom, so to speak, and learning. Choose them wisely and like get everything you can out of them if you can. And again, we're still close with all the founders from that program, and even those that ran the program. Still one of them is one of our advisors. It's an incredible experience, because what we do, if you're watching this, you're thinking about doing a startup, it's not normal. Your family is not going to understand what the heck you're up to, and it's lonely and it's hard. So make sure you want to do it. And then, like, if you get to that point, keep trying to get into those accelerators. And they are hard to get into. They're highly sought after, but if you can do it, you're going to really enjoy the dividends of that connection and the learnings you get from them, it'll, like, again, I'm 4 years post Techstars and I'm still benefiting. So you can't go wrong.
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate you sharing all that. I would say I kind of want to focus a little bit on the loneliness and the difficulty. It's easy to talk about, successes and all the good stuff,
Mhm.
but tell me more about that mindset of a founder and kind of what you have to learn and maybe how you've matured and grown, going through kind of some of those challenges. And maybe,
Mhm.
I would like to ask, what is the closest you've come to like throwing in the towel and saying, this isn't worth it? And how do you bounce back from
How long's your show?
that?
You know what? You either have it in your gut or you don't. And I feel like I've kind of learned that. Like you know, um, it's a challenge because you're constantly having, I always call it, you got to Nancy Drew it. You're always looking for the unlock. And you lie, every founder I know, they lie awake and they're thinking of the unlock, the unlock, the unlock. And that's from marketing, sales, um, every facet, product innovation. Like you're always, always, always. And if you have a great co-founder, they're doing the same. And if you have great, senior folks on the team, they're doing the same. They're always, always looking for the unlock. So you're never coasting. You're never standing still. You've never got it. It's like it's constantly evolving. And so that by itself is unsettling. And just when you've kind of shared to your friends and family where you're at, you've shifted a bit and they're like, oh, but I thought you were, and you're like, we'll keep up. Come on, we're here now. We're here. Technology's moving. So, and that's it. Technology is constantly evolving. Like where video was when we started is not where it is today. Video is exploding. And so, for us personally, I'm so grateful we spent and invested a ton into our patents. So I think the loneliness, and I didn't come up with this term. It was the former CEO of Shopify Plus that said, what we are doing is not normal. And the minute he said that, and again, it was at a class, I was like, oh, finally, this feels so good to me because it doesn't feel normal. It
Yeah.
is challenging. And you make a lot of hard decisions. You get really close with people you work with, and sometimes, the business changes and it's not a good fit anymore. I mean, there's a lot of hard conversations and challenges, but the wins are incredible. Like when you do unlock and you do figure it out and you do get that first check and your tech does work and you do get, like I said, the conversation from your customers, that's it. And when you do meet with investors, they're like, holy crap. And we're like, yeah, right. This is holy crap. Like that is why you're doing this. You're in this to make a difference. You're in this to have to change and disrupt something incredible. And you got to keep your eye on the ball. So yeah, it's hard. Yeah. Have I cried in my car? Yeah, sure I have. But you know what? I get up the next day and I'm excited. I'm excited to take on the next challenge and figure out that new unlock because that's what it's about.
And I would imagine that having, those friends that you've made from, the startup community, other founders are the ones that you can talk to because what you're doing is not normal and not everybody's going to get it. And there's probably unique conversations you're going to have with those type of people.
Totally.
Necessarily can't with, other friends, family members that just don't really get kind of where you're at in the mindset and how it all works.
Mm-hmm.
That brings me to, I would like to hear a bit about, we like to talk about, typically when you're a founder, work-life balance goes out the window. But
Mm-hmm.
at some point you got to find harmony, right? So how do you go about that? You mentioned, kind of made a mention of family, earlier in the show. How do you maintain harmony as you're running a fast growing SaaS startup? Like, what is that like? And what are some of the things you've done and lessons you've learned to work through that?
Yeah. And if I say specifically as a mom, so obviously my co-founder is a dad and he's got 3 kids and I've got 2. And, when I started this, I mean, I literally had one baby, which don't ever do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that with a baby. It's actually dangerous for the baby. Don't, because you are very distracted. Do not do that. Yeah. I don't know if you ever find work-life balance. I mean, I feel like what I've learned now, having done this for several years, I've had to really figure out my superhero power and where I perform best. And like for me, I'm a morning person. So like 5 o'clock, I'm up and mental health, I've got to get on that Peloton, meditate. And then I start work because I've got East Coast folks working away. So like in this position, I'm really working off 2 time zones. And I think, but you got to carve out little snippets of time and you do need to unplug. I actually think in some respects, being a mom has helped me because it's 2 different crazy stress sides of the brain. There's the work stress and then there's the kid stress. And I think you would probably see maybe a lot more burnout if it was just all work. But I do, if you were to ask my husband, he would say I work around the clock. But I feel okay with it. Am I filled with mom guilt? Totally. But guess what? Every mom I know is filled with mom guilt. So whether I'm doing this or I'm working for someone else, that's just par for the course. Will my kids be in therapy? I don't know. But it was interesting during the pandemic because travel stopped. So that was like, that was a new challenge by itself. And now that travel's gearing up again, I think that's a challenge for the kids. It's like, oh, you're leaving again. I'm like, a lot. So, but you make it work. I've got an incredible husband who is basically Mr. Mom. And like he does all the cooking and he does all of that. So I don't think I could do what I'm doing if I didn't have that support. So it's really thinking through that and getting really honest if you're about to do a startup with your partner, if you have a partner, and talking about that, or if you have children, like really figuring that out, getting really honest, because a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings.
Yeah.
What the job is.
No, it's very true. Very, very candid feedback there.
So no work-life balance is, I guess, the point.
Well, you find that harmony, right? And yeah, it's usually not very balanced, but that's why I think you got to love what it is you do and be passionate about it. And you got to find those wins so rewarding. I mean, that's how you know that you're built for this, is when it's all worth it, right? When you do get, the validation, positive feedback. And
you got it. It's all about that. It's really cool. Like what we're doing is really exciting. It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's hard though. Yeah, but it's great.
I want to talk a little bit. I saw a video that you did, and you talked about the end of influencers, and I love the concept. And if you recall, the video I was talking about, I would love for you to elaborate on that, because we hear about influencers all the time, and you were talking about authenticity and how that's what people want to see and hear. And I think that goes very much in line with your business and the product. So what do you mean by that when you say, people are getting tired of influencers? You see a coming decline in that area?
I think, I might have been a bit dramatic, but I mean, I'm old enough to know that influencers came for really important reasons. Marketers had to do more with less. We had all these social channels we had to have a role on. You had to be a part of all of them. Your customers demanded it. And influencers had a really, really important role. And I think they still do today, quite honestly. There is that awareness play that they do incredibly well. However, people are hip to the fact that they're getting paid. It is an arrangement. It is a business model. And really what StoryTap is doing, if you were to look at the trajectory of influencers, you've got macro, micro, and I think what we're excited about is we're that new, it's just your real customers influencing. So it's not dead per se, it's going to look a bit different. So I think the mix is broadening. And when you do look at the potential of your real customers and real staff members, giving them the tools to help you grow your business in a way that they feel fantastic about, there's a shift. There's authenticity, truth telling, and you just kind of know the difference. So I think the landscape will change. Will it be dead? It's going to look different, I think. And I think that's pretty normal and pretty natural. They've had a good ride for a long time, but I think things will shift or they have to it has to be a lot easier to work with the influencers too. And I think there needs to be a lot more transparency there. So I think, again, it's just going to be a different landscape. And I think the future is real people telling stories about the brands that they love or like, or are using. It may not even be a love. It may be just be that whatever product or service is helping them in this way, so that the stories, and there's so many stories, it's not just promote. There's so many stories that help average people make great buying decisions. It's not just like, I like this. It could be what the packaging is. Is it a sustainable company? Like, there's so many stories and use cases. And that's where we get a little excited, because we know that we see that on the data side, what stories are working and what stories people want to watch. What are they looking for? What are they trying to learn before they make this buying decision? So the landscape is shifting.
Yeah, and you're already giving some kind of direction of where you see video going, but I would like to hear other predictions that you have for how video is going to change and evolve. I think being, that being able to showcase those really authentic customer stories and journeys is certainly one area, but anything else, because video has had such a quick and rise, and now it's everywhere and it's so important to use. What else do you see happening with video?
Well, it's funny, like when I started in the biz, at the height of high production, I was doing like 15 videos a year, and that was exhausting. And I'd say when we started StoryTap, we started coaching our customers that they needed roughly about 50 a year. And now, if they're not thinking 300, and that number isn't just you need all this volume. It is, when you really look at video, what's incredible about where it's headed is personalization. And what I'm going to resonate to is not what you're going to resonate to, even based on geography. You're in Ohio, I'm in Vancouver. Your opinion is very different than my opinion, just on geography. So when you start to peel back personalization and the future of how folks want to engage with an online brand, they do want video, but they don't just want video. They want video that's relevant to them. So that is like that new level of humanization is the future. And of course, we're highly invested in that direction because we see how it performs, and it's incredible.
Has there been one particular growth channel or tactic that has been like just really important for the growth of the business?
Yeah, so many. I'd say one that's really interesting for us, and we actually built tech around it that we don't even sell, are events. So we have an event version of our platform. We literally don't even sell it, partly because it's not part of our ARR journey, but it's incredible for us when we partner with events. We help them capture stories on the day, and that is wonderful because it gives us exposure. So I'd say events are an incredible challenge, or an incredible opportunity for us to for lead gen. It's phenomenal, in fact. And then, quite honestly, we do a lot of video SEO. Google bought YouTube. It cares a lot about video. So we're kind of high on that. So I'd say when you think through channels, thinking through ones where the wind's at your back is best, and to try to get that flywheel, that momentum happening is obviously the goal. And again, it's not easy to find your channels, and we're still channel hunting, as all founders are. Even on their C and D round, they're hunting for more efficient channels to drive leads. So I'd say we're no different than that. But yeah, that's a window into what we're up to.
Fantastic. What would you say, if we were to talk about the next, 18 months to 3 years, where do you see StoryTap being, let's say, 3 years from now?
Good question. Well, we're really excited about the future of where we're headed. And, the TAM is incredible. And I do believe there will be one winner, one top of mind winner. And I think we're positioned quite well, and we're going for it. So I think, honestly, world domination, is that an answer? So I think, yeah, that's where we're headed. That's where we're focused, in an incredibly authentic, transparent way.
It's fantastic. Before I ask my last question, it's a question we ask all of our guests. Bernadette, where can people who are tuned in learn more about StoryTap, more about you, follow, kind of pay attention? check it out? Where are the best places to look?
I think if you would just go to StoryTap.com, we're pretty active on LinkedIn. You could follow us on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. Happy to have a conversation. I love connecting with founders. It's not easy. We're all in it together. Yeah, I think those are two great places to start. And yeah, and we'll have those conversations.
Fantastic. Really appreciate that. So just to kind of wrap up, a question we like to throw out there to all of our guests is, if you were able to go back in time before you launched the business and sit down and have a cup of coffee with your younger self, what's the one piece of advice that you'd share?
So you're saying before I got into this business and I get into tech, if I would have met myself at even 15, learn to code, get into tech, it is so exciting. And the learning never stops. And if you're, a nerd like me, you're going to thrive. I feel like I could have started this much sooner. And yeah, just get into it, start learning, start failing. I hate that term fail fast, but honestly, it's so true. And I don't love that, but it is so true. Like, get in and make mistakes and screw up and keep going.
It's awesome. Well, thank you, Bernadette. We really appreciate you being here, sharing your time. I encourage everybody to go to StoryTap.com, check it out, connect with Bernadette. This has been really great. Look forward to seeing you guys do incredible things. So again, Bernadette, appreciate your time here today. Thank you for everyone who's tuned in. We will see you again next week with another great and interesting founder. But for now, take care, everybody. And thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Bernadette.
Thanks, Tony. My pleasure.
Take care.